Good afternoon. You're very welcome to the program. You're listening to SIRAJ Zaidi until 4 o'clock. And this is your own Apna radio broadcasting at 93.9 Dublin South FM India time, 8:30 to 9:30. And you shall be entertained and informed, totally informed about the world we're living in, about the tense world we're living in. And so without further ado, I go straight into the news item. And which Charmaine has put together, a beautiful news item. So there you go. I would be able to let you know what else is going on in the world. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this particular news item, news of the week.
You are listening to Apna Radio 93.9 Dublin South FM. On India this week, India has relaxed restrictions on Chinese investment as its economy comes under pressure from surging energy prices in the wake of the Middle East war. In a statement late on Tuesday, Prime Minister Narendra Modi's cabinet gave the green light to investments in capital goods, electronics and solar cell sectors from neighbouring land bordering nations. While no direct reference to China was made in the statement, the highly bureaucratic rules, dubbed Press Note 3, come in the wake of deadly border clashes between the militaries of the two giant Asian rivals 6 years ago. The rules made all investments by land border sharing countries subject to government approval. The new guidelines will provide clarity and ease of doing business in India and facilitate investments which can contribute towards greater FDI inflows, access to new technologies, domestic value addition, expansion of domestic firms and integration with the global supply chain, India's government said. This would help in leveraging and enhancing India's competitiveness as a preferred investment and manufacturing destination. Modi's government had been discussing relaxing the rules amid industry pressure to ease Chinese flows. The conflict in the Middle East has severely disrupted the flow of oil and gas, and the rupee has tumbled to its lowest level against the dollar. The move also comes as New Delhi is navigating its relationship with the US, its largest trading partner. US President Donald Trump has temporarily allowed India to buy some Russian oil, previously a source of contention between the two sides, and a trigger for a higher tariff rate on Indian exports. Trump claimed that India's purchases were funding Moscow's war in the Ukraine. He has since reduced the tariff to 18%. The trade and diplomatic rift with Washington pushed India to deepen ties with other partners, and it struck long-pending trade agreements with others, including the EU, this year. While China is India's second-largest trading partner, the gross FDI inflow from Beijing was just $2.67 million in the fiscal year ending in March 2025, a drop in the overall total of $50 billion. Indian businesses say they are struggling to keep operations running as gas supplies are disrupted by the US and Israel's war on Iran. Restaurant owners are scrambling to keep kitchens running, and entrepreneurs in industries like ceramics and fertilizers say they are unable to maintain their production and are warning of shutdowns. India has said it is not short of gas, but has invoked emergency measures to ensure supplies get to domestic consumers and other key users. The country meets half of its total gas consumption through imports, much of which comes through the Strait of Hormuz, a narrow Gulf choke point where shipping has effectively been halted by retaliatory Iranian strikes. The conflict, now in its 11th day, has led to millions of barrels of oil and gas getting stuck near the Strait of Hormuz. About 40 to 50% of Indian crude oil imports pass through the narrow waterway. It also carries roughly 50 to 60% of the country's liquefied natural gas, LNG, imports and about 80 to 85% of its liquefied petroleum gas, LPG, shipments. For restaurants, cafes and millions of other eateries across India, the top concern is LPG, widely used as cooking gas. India imports 80 to 85% of the LPG it consumes annually, making it the world's second-largest LPG importer after China. Almost all of it comes from Gulf producers, mainly Qatar, Saudi Arabia, the UAE and Kuwait, passing through the Strait of Hormuz. Analysts say LPG supply is the more immediate vulnerability for India. Stocks held by refiners and distributors are estimated to cover only about 2 to 3 weeks of demand. India's domestic LNG output meets only a fraction of demand in an economy that increasingly depends on gas for electricity generation, fertiliser production, city gas distribution, transport and industry. The chief executive of India's largest airline, IndiGo, has resigned months after a crisis that forced the carrier to cancel thousands of flights. The airline confirmed Pieter Elber's departure with immediate effect, saying he stepped down for personal reasons, without sharing further details. The move follows intense scrutiny after widespread cancellations linked to new pilot roster rules left passengers stranded across India last year. IndiGo controls about 2/3 of the country's domestic aviation market, making disruptions to its operations a major issue for India's fast-growing air travel sector. The airline operates a fleet of around 440 aircraft and runs mostly domestic services, along with a few international routes to destinations in the Middle East, Europe and Asia. It has played a significant role in the rapid growth of India's aviation sector, which is one of the fastest expanding air travel markets in the world. IndiGo said in a press statement on Tuesday that its co-founder Rahul Bhatia will take charge of the airline in the interim, while the company searches for a new chief executive. In December, IndiGo cancelled about 4,500 flights, the largest disruption in the airline's 20-year history, leaving thousands of passengers stranded at airports across the country. Disruption followed the introduction of new pilot duty and rest regulations in India, designed to reduce fatigue among flight crews. The airline later acknowledged it had misjudged how many pilots it would need once the rules came into force. In a landmark ruling, India's Supreme Court has allowed the removal of life support of a 31-year-old man who has been in a vegetative state for more than a decade. This is the first instance of court-approved passive euthanasia, the act of withdrawing or withholding life-sustaining treatment in India. The man, Harish Rana, had not left a will specifying directives for his treatment before he had an accident. India legalised passive euthanasia in 2018. But active euthanasia, any act that intentionally helps a person kill themselves, remains illegal. Rana suffered serious head injuries after falling from a fourth-floor balcony in 2013. He has remained in a comatose state since then. Over the years, his parents petitioned courts several times to allow their son's life support system to be removed. Rana's case has sparked a debate in India around the ethics of court-approved passive euthanasia, with some noting that it goes against the principle of self-determination, which is the foundation of a living will. A living will is a legal document which allows a person over 18 years to choose the medical care they would like to receive if they develop a terminal illness or condition with no hope of recovery. Wednesday's order paves the way for the medical boards to exercise their clinical judgment regarding the withdrawal of treatment for Rana. And finally, a short promotional film challenging the traditional view in India that a married daughter must stay with her husband in their marital home, even if he is abusive, has spotlighted domestic violence and won hearts across the country. 3.5-minute Band Baija Bitya, Hindi for a wedding band and daughter, is the moving tale of a father who goes to retrieve his daughter from her violent matrimonial home and uses the celebratory wedding band as a mark of defiance. The film stars Bollywood actor veteran Gajraj Rao, one of Bollywood's finest character actors and celebrated for his role in hit Bollywood film Badhai Ho, said the response to the film had been overwhelming. And that's all from me. You have been listening to Apna Radio 93.9 Dublin South FM.
Thank you very much indeed, Charmaine. You have done a great job covering quite a lot of ground in terms of business and in terms of what's happening even in the entertainment industry. So today, the program is packed up. So I will play the first clip of what's going on in the world before I would play the Sharad clip. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this particular information.
And I will take it forward also that basically Netanyahu, this gangster in the Middle East, he trapped Trump and blackmailed Trump with the Epstein files and forced him into this war, dragged him into this war, which is a war of Netanyahu, which is not America's war. And Trump has betrayed his mandate to the American people and to the mega base because now it's no longer America first, it's Israel first. And he said no more wars. He's now jumped into these wars when there is no threat at all. And I think it's very clear that the American people are not behind him in this war, which is an unwinnable war, which is going to have worse consequences than even the Iraq misadventure of 2003. And I think I would fully agree that the APAC, the American Israel Public Affairs Committee, the Jewish lobby in the United States, that's, as it was once said, that the Israeli occupied territory is not Gaza and West Bank alone. It's also the United States Congress and the Washington establishment. Sadly, that is turning out to be true.
The failure of the government and the two ministers who spoke for the government today to condemn the attack by Israel and the United States on Iran is an absolute disgrace. An absolute disgrace. I mean, the world is now paying a price for the bloodlust of the psychopaths that run Israel and the psychopaths that are the Trump administration, attacking Iran and setting the entire region on fire and now precipitating economic consequences for literally everybody in the world. And the Irish government cannot bring themselves to condemn that. They can't bring themselves to condemn the slaughter of 160 innocent schoolgirls massacred by the Americans and the Israelis. In the last 2 hours, a 12,000-seater football stadium in Tehran was destroyed by the US-Israeli attack. A football stadium. What has that got to do with bringing anything other than death and destruction and horror to the world? They want to do to Iran what they did to Gaza. This is about them doing what they did in the past in El Salvador, Chile, in Nicaragua, what they did in Iraq and Afghanistan, what they have done with their cat's paw, America, the West's cat's paw, called the Israeli state, the genocidal regime that has been ethnically cleansing the Palestinian people since 1948, and you are facilitating them as we speak. Just as was done by previous Irish governments when you facilitated the US-led war on Iraq in 2003, also based on a pack of lies about weapons of mass destruction, supposedly about taking out a dictator, in reality, which led directly and indirectly to 1 million people dying and 4 million people at the time being displaced in the biggest refugee crisis that the world had ever seen up until that point. Are you seriously going to go over and hand this guy a bowl of shamrock next week? It's disgusting. It's such a betrayal of our tradition of neutrality, of anti-imperialism, that we are going to get down and bend the knee to these bloodthirsty warmongers who are setting the world on fire. Do not believe you have the support of the majority of people. Most people out there can see what's going on. They can see the price we're going to pay for it, and the economic price they are starting to pay themselves, as well as the horror that is beginning to unfold across the Middle East.
Now, that is Richard Boyd Barrett at top of his voice in the Parliament, our Parliament, Dáil Éireann, talking about it and articulating the best he can, because the man is just recovering from his throat cancer. God love him, the way he passionately speaks, and he never holds his passion back when he's talking about something close to his heart. So the global view of the world is absolutely crystal clear, but the point about that is that nobody in the globe can actually do anything about it. Majority of the European nations cannot do anything about it. We here in Ireland are the tiniest of the tiny, insignificant minority, small nation. We can only articulate our voices in Parliament, in the media here, and whatever the outlets we have. But the bigger picture is obviously catastrophic. That's all I can say. Everybody knows whoever opens up the newspaper and news channels that this. But I don't understand that why this International Court of Justice, a warrant has been out there. Nobody can actually go and get him, and he'll continue to destroy the world and destroy a nation, peaceful nation like Iran. Now they have their own internal thing. They have their own internal power, but that's like any other nation. I mean, all nations have their own internal problems. But let's see what Sharad has got to say about it, because his words are always a final word, and I do really respect his final analysis of what he has to say about this particular issue, about the world, about the globe, about what's happening, and everything is sort of like a quite an interesting way of looking into the whole thing. So let's see what he has to say, and I just particularly would like to see the point is that the world is burning. Yes, what he said about uh, you know at the top of his introduction is that yes, it is the most horrific kind of consequences that we are witnessing right now in the 12th days of this war. So what we are witnessing is, it, you know, sometimes, I just don't have words, because the words are just something very, very powerful thing. But sometimes you lose the sight, and you lose the ability to actually analyze what world we are living in, because the world we do live in is an interesting world. So sit back, relax, and listen to this particular clip.
WhatsApp universities, resident association WhatsApp groups, TV debates, and you hear a familiar line. The world is burning, we have a crisis in the Middle East, and that conflict is erupting across regions. Missiles are flying in West Asia, and the instability is spreading. No doubt about it. And yet, we are told that India is safe. Half truth. What is pushed further is that India is safe because of one leader, and India is safe because of one government, and India is safe because of the wisdom of his leadership, Mr. Modi's leadership. Now, that may sound comforting for one set of people because it's a propaganda. But history rarely works that way. Nations do not become secure just because of one single speech or one single election, and for that matter, one single personality. National security is built slowly, painfully, and quietly over a period of time. India's national strength, the very foundation of our strategic security today, didn't just appear overnight. It is built over decades. It is built by scientists working in laboratories. It is built by diplomats negotiating through the years in those hostile rooms of United Nations. The political leadership who, through these times, have made difficult decisions under enormous pressure. So to understand this story, we must go back to the years just after independence. We all know India was a poor country then, newly free, but still trying to find its footing in the world dominated by those powerful blocs. And yet, there were scientists, there were leaders, there were engineers, there were patriots who believed that India must master the most advanced technologies of its time. So the government of India established Atomic Energy Commission way back in 1948, just a year after India got independence. And the chairperson was Homi Jahangir Bhabha. And this later transformed to the Department of Atomic Energy in 1954 under then Prime Minister Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru. Yes, the same Prime Minister who is accountable for all the failures of current government. So the leaders at the time understood something very fundamental about the power. Political freedom means little if nation remains technologically dependent on others. And if you cannot produce knowledge, you will eventually import power. Sounds familiar today? We are importing everything under this present government. Under the guise of Make in India, we are importing all the designs. We are importing all the patents. And we are just manufacturing them like a labor. These are the comparison between those times and the current. So back to the early 50s, there began the difficult task of building institutions, laboratories, research centers, and generally, if you see, there was a scientific culture in the country. And all this is not glamorous work. There were no television cameras at the time, if you know. There was no social media glares. There was no undue attention except for a clear, defined coverage on the newspaper and the radio. Unlike today, when a 4-kilometer of existing railway track, which is renovated in Tamil Nadu, is inaugurated with all the fanfare by Mr. Modi, Prime Minister of India. So there is a stark contrast with what we are trying to do today and what was done earlier. So this quiet effort in those days created the intellectual foundation of India's greatest program, India's greatest nuclear program. So over the years, quietly, the Indian leadership and the Indian engineers were working. And then came the defining political moment of the country. In 1974, under the leadership of then Prime Minister Mrs. Indira Gandhi, India conducted its first nuclear test in the Rajasthan deserts at Pokhran. It was called Smiling Buddha. And this calm name had a very serious message. Of course, the world was not pleased. At that time, the global nuclear order was tightly controlled. Even today it is, but it was even more strict. Only 5 countries were officially recognized as nuclear powers. India was not one of them. But India had refused to sign the treaty that locked that hierarchy in place. So when this nuclear device was detonated, of course, these sanctions followed. And the repercussion was that the technology restrictions followed. There were diplomatic pressures, but India's message was unmistakable. India would not permanently accept strategic inequality. A nuclear device alone, however, does not create deterrence. We should understand that. It has to have a delivery system, a credible and a reliable delivery system. And this is where another remarkable figure enters the story of giving the strength of making India great. APJ Abdul Kalam, an engineer, a scientist, but a very quiet, humble man with extraordinary determination. And under his leadership, India developed missile systems as Agni and Prithvi, whom we have immense pride today. And we must understand these were not imported technologies. They were built domestically. Nothing like make in India. They were domestic. They were indigenous. And that mattered greatly. Because during those years, technology denial regimes tried to block India's progress. So the components were restricted, research collaborations were highly limited, and advanced equipment was often unavailable. But then, under the leadership, the political and the scientific leadership of India, the scientists adapted, they improvised, they learned to innovate with what they had. So strategic capability slowly began to take shape, and then came early 1990s. If you remember, those were the troubling decade for India. In fact, it was troubling and turbulent times for the entire globe. The Soviet Union had collapsed. There was the Iraq War Part 1. And India was going through the troubled times of Mandir Masjid and Mandal Commission. During that time, economic crisis and political uncertainty was ruling. During this period, then Prime Minister, under those circumstances, still, Mr. P.V. Narasimha Rao quietly authorized preparation for yet another nuclear test. And this test did not take place immediately, of course, because international surveillance detected the unusual activity. Pressure mounted, but the groundwork had been laid. The scientists were ready and looking for an opportunity. And this opportunity came a few years later, in 1998. Then Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee took the final political step. The same Prime Minister who belongs to the current ruling party, BJP. So India conducted a series of nuclear tests at Pokhran once again. This time there was no ambiguity. India openly declared itself a nuclear weapon state. What I am trying to draw the comparison is, the same BJP Prime Minister at the time continued the legacy of nuclear power development and depended heavily on the indigenous and innovative work of the Indian engineers, unlike the current BJP government, who is dependent heavily on the American and the European powers to supply the technology. So back to the story, of course, after Mr. Vajpayee's nuclear test at Pokhran, the sanctions followed. Criticism followed again across the world. Yet, Mr. Vajpayee's government framed the decision about the Pokhran very, very carefully. India would maintain credible minimum deterrence. India would follow a doctrine of restraint, no first use. And India would not be a reckless nuclear power. And this tone actually mattered because strength without restraint is instability. The leadership understood that. So even after the test, India continued to face a problem. Its nuclear status remained internationally isolated. Civil nuclear commerce was restricted. So what does that mean is the fuel supply, the nuclear fuel was limited. The same problem what Iran is facing today, Indian leadership had actually solved some 25 years ago. Under the leadership of then Prime Minister Dr. Manmohan Singh, through a long and delicate negotiations, his government reached the India-United States Civil Nuclear Agreement. Now, this is a landmark agreement. In 2008, the International Atomic Energy Agency approved India's safeguard agreements. And that moment quietly ended decades of nuclear isolation of India. India can now participate in global civil nuclear commerce. It could get access to fuel, technology, and partnerships. So this strategic program moved from isolation to integration. So if we step back and look at this journey, there's a clear pattern appearing here. Different leaders through the years, different political parties, Congress, BJP, and different moment in history. Yet each contributed a piece to the puzzle. The scientists built the knowledge, the engineers built the systems, and diplomats built the bridges, and successive prime ministers took decisions when history demanded, only to make India self-reliant. And this is how national power is built, not like today what we see, or hear rather. It is not through spectacle, it is not through slogan, but through decades of sustained effort. In our present moment, however, our politics has just compressed history. Long processes have become just very short stories, blips. In fact, the Member of Parliaments can be heard saying that India gained real independence in 2014. How shameful is that? And today, those complex achievements of 7 decades of hard work of thousands of these ground workers has become a personal narrative. What? That there is only one leader who can talk to the world leaders, Mr. Modi. How unrealistic is that? This is not unique to India. Every democracy struggles with this temptation. The philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche once remarked that people sometimes resist uncomfortable truth because they threaten cherished illusions. So what are the illusions today? The illusion of supremacy, the illusion of Vishwaguru, the illusion of Modi hai to mumkin hai, the illusion that our Prime Minister can stop a war, the illusion that Hindutva is the greatest. And these political myths are thriving in the space today. What they are doing is only overly simplifying the achievements of our great leaders and scientists. They are personalizing everything to one person, Mr. Modi. They are dramatizing the groundwork, the silent groundwork, into a theater. But a mature democracy must remember its real journey. India's nuclear capability, the minimum deterrence, is not the achievement of one leader. It is an outcome of generations of work. And perhaps remembering that collective journey is itself an act of national responsibility. You and me have to carry that responsibility for sake of true patriotism. Being irresponsible in diverting all the credit to one person is a sign of betrayal to India. Because India is not built by applause. Putting and shepherding 100,000 citizens into a stadium of Ahmedabad for a gala showmanship is only fake. Hitler did that. Instead, India is built by memory of good work done. It is built by institution, by a very subtle and quiet discipline that a beautiful history of India is made. With those thoughts, I leave you until next week. Stay safe, stay informed, dutifully remember the great history of India. Bye for now.
Dublin South FM. You wouldn't buy a car without knowing its history. So why would you buy a story without knowing who's telling it? Come here and I tell you. It's not always easy to verify what you see, read or hear. But now there's help. Visit www.bemediasmart.ie. Stop, think, check. Be Media Smart. Brought to you by Media Literacy Ireland, supported by RTE. 93.9 Dublin South FM.
Welcome back to the program. Indeed, this is Dublin South FM, and you're listening to SIRAJ until 4 o'clock. And this is a really important program today because we are really discussing hardcore issues. One issue about this war, which has been spreading lies in social media, is that Iran is attacking the neighboring country. Listeners, please pay attention to this point. They're not attacking the neighboring Muslim nations like Abu Dhabi, like Qatar, like Dubai, like, Doha and all those, Bahrain. They are attacking the American bases, military bases, illegitimate, imposed, colonized, illegitimate bases set up there. So that's their target. And they've been quite successful. 9 or 11, actually, to date, 11 those bases have been completely destroyed and have been attacked by the missiles from Tehran. So this is the biggest lie which has been spread by the people in the war. I mean, see, in the war, but somebody has said, as we all know, that the first casualty is the truth, and the truth. So nobody knows, and in a muddy environment of the social media, you don't know who's telling the lies and who's telling the truth. But in this case, it is pretty much okay to spread the lies, and thousands of people are working in Israel, or the followers of Israel, or the supporters of Israel and America worldwide, and spreading on social media, because social media is in their hand. And whether it's Twitter, whether it's X, Twitter is gone now, X, or YouTube and all these platforms, Facebook and all that. So all of that is very important for you to analyze through your own national media. And our national media here in RTE is also lean towards, by the way, tonight, on Thursday evening, prime time, Mary McCallaghan would be interviewing the newly arrived Iranian ambassador to Ireland, Mr. Ishtiaq Habibi Al-Habib. Ishtiaq Al-Habib will be on air this evening after the 9 o'clock news on my, prime time. So, and I have a chat with him, and he's happy to come on my show as well, hopefully next week. So this is the problem about the world, and the world is beginning to realize that the world order is shifting. It's no longer, because it's run by pedophiles like Donald Trump and all that, and people are beginning to realize the mistakes that these people, who have absolutely no intelligence or no understanding or the respect for humankind, not for the civilians, nor for the the country willy-nilly they are attacking. So this time, perhaps they're going to they picked up the fight with somebody who has huge amount of arsenal, huge amount of they built up tunnels among the tunnels under the mountains for years, and this now is just the tip of the iceberg. They can sustain the war for as long as they wish, because that's what they are. The message is coming. Oh, it was a regime change about this, that, like Venezuela, you went there and picked it up, the president there, and that's the kind of thing. Oh, we've eliminated the Khamenei, and the president is the ultimate power in Iran. So it's destroyed. The navy is destroyed. They've nothing left. They have nothing else, and the war will be over in a few weeks, in a few days. All of that is an imbecile statement from completely an imbecile man who has absolutely no respect in the world now, because he is badly exposed and part of the Epstein gang, as we call it. They are all personally driven psychopath, maniacs, whatever you call them, and sooner somebody get them, the better. Anyway, the war is a war. You can't actually take the sides of the war, because it is, by the way, in Ireland, our own president, Catherine Connolly, has criticized openly now, has come up, and after a few days, she has said that it is an illegal war. It is not. It is imposed war. It is not a credible war, and the warmongers should be held accountable for that. And for that, she has been so-called our spineless politicians have been, she's been attacked for that. So this is the kind of world we live in. We have to be very careful about our political allegiances. alliance. Yes, we do have interest with America. Yes, we do have the big giants who are sitting here, likes of Google, likes of Microsoft and Facebook and all that, and paying a massive amount of tax, which is running the country, which is creating a surplus of economy in the country. It is a reality, yes. So we have to be very sensitive about. But saying somebody who is nasty and criminal, calling a spade is no crime. Is no. Nobody can take your position of neutrality from you. Nobody can take, they are right, left, and center, destroying humanity. Death and destruction is the only bottom line, as quite rightly as somebody has said, that what they have done in Gaza and in West Bank, and in particularly for 6 consecutively, the whole year, in fact, 7 months carpet bombing to destroy and make the country into a rubble. That's their dream, to turn that Iran as well. But contrary to that, Iran is a big country. It's not a small country of 900 million people, and their ammunition, their war machine is very intact. Under the mountains, they haven't a clue where they are and where they're coming from. So they're shocking the world, and they are quite capable of shocking the world. The other important point is that closing and choking the Strait of Hormuz, which has been talked about it quite a lot, and they have said that long time ago, that look, that waterways belongs to us. If you dare to attack Iran, which they did, we shall take our own action, and we will. So this particular game, so-called war game, or it's not a game, it's proper, actually, a realistic war. It'll continue for another few weeks and maybe months until they'll come to the senses, until these 2 criminal politicians, so-called presidents of the United States of America, and indeed our Benjamin Netanyahu, would come to accountability and come to be arrested or whatever. The end will be, their end will be absolutely horrific. Horrific is the word, because you can't imagine. It's be worse than Saddam Hussein. It's be worse than the previous. But the thing is that because they are backed by likes of our own European leaders, and the rest of the world is actually toe the line, and India too, because India has been very, very supportive and giving a shoulder to the cause, is also being a bigger power. So it remains to be seen the outcome of that. Yes, there will be loss of lives. Yes, there will be loss of infrastructure, both sides. But one thing absolutely be clear, because that's not a narrow nation-to-nation war. It is a war of getting rid of the hegemony of the United States of America to the Middle East. Middle East has been turned into a colony, colonized by the Americans by setting up their bases, by enjoying their, the existence over there, and indeed sucking the blood of the nations there, selling them the expensive arms to create a fear that, oh, Iran will attack you. Yes, Iran will attack, not the people, not the infrastructure of the country, not civilians, only your bases, only the bases, military bases that has been set up there. And that is a clear and loud message. If it's get through to somebody, should understand this particular point. Anyway, time is running out, and I would take Ramadan is still here. And yesterday was the assassination of Amir al-Mu'mineen, the Ali ibn Abi Talib, the first Imam of the Islamic world, who has been attacked again whilst praying in the mosque. I mean, imagine if somebody is praying in the mosque and is being attacked from behind with a poisonous sword. And so therefore we have a eulogy and basically a track which is talking about that. So sit back, relax, and I'll talk about that. And after that, we also have one more track about it. So sit back and listen to this one, and the program is nearly finishing. So There you go.
Hay Ali, Hay Ali, Hay Ali, Hay Ali, Hay Ali, Momino hai dare karar ka matam kar lo. 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 हाँ मोहम्मद के अलम दार का मातम कर लो. मोमिनो है दरे करार का मातम कर लो. मोमिनो है दरे करार का मातम कर लो. फाकुड़ाओ के अली शेर खुदा मार गए. फाकुड़ाओ के अली शेर खुदा मार गए. बाजुए अहमद मुख्तार का मातम कर लो. मोमिनो है दरे करार का मातम कर लो. जिसके दर से न गया खाली सवाली कोई. जिसके दर से न गया खाली सवाली कोई. उस सखी साहिब किरदार का मातम कर लो. मोमिनो है दरे करार का मातम कर लो. मोमिनो है दरे करार का मातम कर लो. जो के पांचों में भी है 12 इमामों में भी है. जो के पांचों में भी है 12 इमामों में भी है. सारे नबियों के मदद गार का मातम कर लो. मोमिनो है दरे करार का मातम कर लो. मोमिनो है दरे करार का मातम कर लो. हर वली कहता है ये करके अली का मातम. हर वली कहता है ये करके अली का मातम. मेरे आका मेरे सरकार का मातम कर लो. मोमिनो
Mu'minum Haydar Karrar. Haydar Karrar is being referred to Imam Ali, Ali ibn Abi Talib, the son-in-law of Prophet Muhammad, who has been struck on the night of the first morning of the 19th of Ramadan, which was a few days ago. And he passed away after 3 days on the 21st of Ramadan, which was yesterday. So this is something which is very dear to the heart of Muslims all over the world who follow the so-called Shi'ani Ali. And they always, commemorate in the middle of Ramadan this particular tragedy that occurred 1,400 years ago in a mosque called Kufa in Iraq. Why it happened? Because it's a long story and I don't have time to go into that, but you can Google it and you can see why Imam Ali has been Amir al-Mu'mineen, as he has been referred to, has been struck inside the mosque while he was praying. Now, and this is something very dear to heart for people, and this is the fundamental point about assassination of Amir al-Mu'mineen. What happened afterwards is another history of Islam. Islam took a different turn altogether, and that assassination proved to be the most diabolical aspect of the Islamic history, and the way the history is now being shaped right now in front of our eyes through this particular war that we are witnessing right now, we are also witness at that time, unfortunately, the loss of Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib. Now, people are comparing Ali Khamenei as well. The loss of Khamenei, which has been commemorating worldwide as well. The innocent man, 86 years of age, a sage, the person who has been followed by millions of people as a spiritual leader, not only the political leader. Yes, he was a supreme commander, but he was also the spiritual leader. So much so for the change of regime, so-called, by them. What do they mean by that? Who the hell they are to actually come up with this kind of nonsense regime change? The only regime change will happen in US, and Netanyahu will go soon. They have replaced, and one Khamenei has been replaced by his son Mujtaba Khamenei, which has been elected by the council of the people who elect such a position. So that has been intact. Khamenei is still there. Khamenei has a younger version of Khamenei, should I say. He is in his 60s and a very eminent soldier as well as eminent scholar and the most credible man who can hold such a high position in this particular time of war. Now, the war is continuing and will continue until they would win all the points that they... Yes, destruction will be here, but don't worry about the destruction. People come replaced by the new people, so as the buildings replaced by the new buildings. Perhaps the better buildings will be built, those who are destroyed. But their will cannot be destroyed. And the system of Wilayat al-Faqih, which I mentioned in the last program, the system which has been established in 1979 after the revolution of Iran, Islamic Republic of Iran, is intact, will be intact. That cannot be penetrated. Doesn't matter. It's not open for negotiation. It's not. And now the nuclear, as Sharad has touched that point. Let me add to it. Iran has got a right to enrich. They have no way going to compromise. They have done it enough compromise, and they're going to enrich as much as possible and develop a nuclear weapon. So go ahead, do whatever you want to do it. They will do it because now it's a matter of do and die. They have to do it like any other nation in the world. If they want to be part of the group of nations who have nuclear weapons, then so be it. And so otherwise get rid of nuclear weapons from Israel, the 400 odd or maybe 500 odd nuclear weapons they have. The only fear of the world, and my interpretation is that just like when they are actually close to losing the war, they might just use nuclear on Iran, the way the Americans have used on Hiroshima and Nagasaki in Japan. So this is the only fear I have, and I hope the Russians are listening and that will intervene, and the people, because they built their nuclear power and nuclear plant with the help of Russia. So therefore, Mr. Putin will intervene, and hopefully that situation may not occur. But in the meantime, the ballistic missiles are flying, and their missiles are absolutely super duper in their manufacture and all that. And that missiles are destroying Tel Aviv. They'll destroy, in fact, they'll wipe out the state of so-called criminal state of Zionist state. And hopefully that'll be very much fairly soon will happen. As I said, next week, I'm hoping to bring the Iranian ambassador in my program, and I shall be talking to him about many things like this, that if they have right to the global, because the global game has become the jungle, and this cannot be acceptable. International law must be respected, must be enforced, and must be respected, and the world must exist with peace according to the international law. You cannot have a double standard by having one country to have a nuclear weapons in the region and the other country you cannot. And therefore, they're paying a heavy price for that. And of course, they pay the price of the blood. But that nation is an amazing, courageous nation. It's not a nation of nincompoops. It's not a nation of, people with a short, short-sighted. They are Iranian nation, Persian nation, proud nation, and they cannot compromise their dignity and pride. Let alone from a lunatic person like Netanyahu and Trump, who unilaterally, without respecting the international law, went to this war. And that could be just by the end of that, the Americans, of course, they are the most powerful army they have. And by the way, the amount of money they are spending, $1 billion a day. Imagine the kind of money. American people are crying for better hospitals, better medical system, better medical insurance, better education and all that. That has been taken away from the citizen of America and thrown into the fire of missile and Lockheed and all those manufacturers who are arms, who are getting richer and richer. Anyway, time is really short, and I would like to play another clip of the commemoration of Amir al-Mu'mineen. Ramadan is coming to an end, another week left, and therefore this is the third week of Ramadan is always dedicated to the commemoration of Amir al-Mu'mineen, Ali ibn Abi Talib, who has been struck in the mosque by a guy called Ibn Muljim. Continuation of the conflict which has been going on in the region for quite some time. So there you go. This is another poet, another wonderful man called Mir Hassan, and he has also have a eulogy about poetry and eulogy about Amir al-Mu'mineen.
Hai Ali, 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 Maula Ali, ro ro ke Ali kyun lete hain زینب کا نام مسلح پر کے علی کیوں لیتے ہیں زینب کا نام مسلح پر کیا یاد علی کو آیا ہے بازار شام مسلح پر کے علی کیوں لیتے ہیں زینب کا نام مسلح پر کے علی کیوں لیتے ہیں زینب کا نام مسلح پر خون جاری تھا زخمی سر سے روتے تھے نمازی صف میں کھڑے خون جاری تھا زخمی سر سے روتے تھے نمازی صف میں کھڑے کس طرح حسن نے رو رو کر کی فجر تمام مسلح پر کے علی کیوں لیتے ہیں زینب کا نام مسلح پر کے علی کیوں لیتے ہیں زینب کا نام مسلح پر کیا ماں کی طرح لینے تم کو مسجد میں چلی آئے زینب کیا ماں کی طرح لینے تم کو مسجد میں چلی آئے زینب بابا کو جا کر مسلح پر کے علی کیوں لیتے ہیں زینب کا نام مسلح پر کے علی کیوں لیتے ہیں زینب کا نام مسلح پر زخمی پہلو جب یاد آیا زخمی پیشانی بھول گیا زخمی پہلو جب یاد آیا زخمی پیشانی بھول گیا زغرا کی مصیبت پر رویا مظلوم امام مصلی پر کہ کیوں لیتے گئے زینب کا نام مصلی پر کہ کیوں لیتے گئے زینب کا نام مصلی پر یہ پہلی فجر ہے زینب کی سجدے میں سکون ملتا ہی نہیں یہ پہلی فجر ہے زینب کی سجدے میں سکون ملتا ہی نہیں دل ڈوبتا ہے آتا ہی نہیں ایک پل آرام مصلی پر کہ کیوں لیتے گئے.
And that is it. My condolences to those who are commemorating the demise of Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib this Ramadan, which has just been is going to be completed in a week's time. And there will be a Quds Day. The last Friday of Ramadan is going to be tomorrow, because we don't know whether the following Friday will be Eid or not. But we have a program at 1 o'clock at the Milltown Mosque in Milltown, just down the road from here, at 1 o'clock. And there will be some presentations and speeches about the Al-Quds Day. Quds means that it's the last Friday of Ramadan has been dedicated to the plight of Palestinian people. Anyway, that's it, folks. And I am grateful for my all contributors, particularly Sharad Awasthi and Charmaine Colvin, who has been consistent in making this program likable to lots of listeners. And the program will be uploaded on the YouTube if you missed to listen live. And just like every week, I shall be back next week with more news, more interesting information, and more content. So don't forget to tune me in, DSFM, Dublin South FM 93.9. Thank you for listening. And bye for now. Have a great weekend.
شام شام مصلی پر کہ کیوں لیتے گئے زینب